Hey, family, I am pleased and proud, and godly proud to be coming to you again tonight in this what we call relevant conversations with me, Bishop John Solders. I thank you for joining us. Thank you for continuing to support us as we bear witness to all the kinds of things we're paying attention to and are engaged and involved in. More Monday, family. Thank you for showing up. And let me ask you to do a couple of things. Whatever platform you're watching us, either on Facebook or X, or now Instagram. If you're watching us or in YouTube, want you to like and subscribe, get notifications from us when we are going to be on. We are excited. I'm excited tonight because somebody that I have just recently met is with us tonight, and let me tell you a little bit of the precursor, and then let me bring them on and stop dominating the conversation. Some of you know, but most of you don't know. There was a shooting on the 25th, I believe, right after the Saturday, right after Thanksgiving, in Vermont. There were 3 students, Palestinian students, that were involved in that shooting. And one of those students was one of my students who attends Trinity College. And I was then deployed and was part of the team that was there to support not only our student, but the other 2 students and their families during the early days, and in fact was there for a significant amount of time, and was able to accompany our student and his family back to Trinity College and back to campus here. And in the course of that time I was there in Burlington, Vermont, there was immediately, I mean within minutes, there were people from all over the world who knew about what had happened, who had gotten information. I got to see in real time how small this world really is and how this technology works. Oh my God. And so, and during the course of the first few days, we got word that an ambassador was coming to visit. A Palestinian ambassador. And in fact, it was true. We were getting messages from all over the place. We were getting messages from, kings. We were getting messages from senators and congresspersons from the United States. We were getting messages from across the world, and then an ambassador, what? And so, and in fact, ambassador, the Palestinian ambassador, the chief representative from Canada showed up, and they showed up with a staff person, and just wanted to spend a few moments with the students and to offer their support. And then we had lunch together and got to talking. And I then understood why I was there in part. Because, have you ever met somebody and you said, kindred spirit, know this person, connect? And that happened to me. And so I now can say, I know me, an ambassador. and a Peruvian. She is the chief ambassador, the chief representative for the Palestinian delegation, and that's now deployed in Canada. And let me bring her to this platform, Ambassador Mona Abuamara. Come on and join this platform and greet my peoples.
Thank you, Bishop John. I told you during the course I might cry. You made me tear up before we even started. And yes, you're right on one thing, mainly that there is a reason that we've met, and there is a reason there with the boys. And I'm telling you, you made me feel a little easier to leave them at that point, because it was a very, very heartbreaking experience. But I felt that there are so many people, loving people around them, that would give them all the care that they deserve after such a hateful incident.
Absolutely. Let me, for those of you who've not been present to this story, let me talk a little bit about what led up. These young men are childhood friends. They've known each other much of their lives. They went to school together. They are Palestinians in Ramallah. They went to middle school and high school together. And then the three of them all got accepted to college here in the United States. And so there is one of the young men has a grandmother and family that are in Vermont. And so they decided that they would come together for Thanksgiving and have Thanksgiving meal. They did it last year. And so, of course, this year, last year was their first year. And so these 20-year-old young men wanted to get together again and hang out. They're buddies. They really are buddies. They really are. And so they were there and just had had a meal and was taking a walk around the neighborhood. And a man walked up to him and started shooting and shot all three of the young men. One of the young men was seriously injured and is now recovering in a rehab facility. And the other two boys, after spending some time in the hospital, were released and are on the road to healing. That's the story. I mean, it's pretty simple, cut and dry. There was no conversation ahead of time. The boys were walking around. Two of them had on kufiyas, and kufiyas, for those of you who don't know what a kufiya is, it's the very, very colorful, and they're all different kinds of colors. Scarf. It's a scarf of resistance. And now we got to know this scarf and many years ago on one of our first trips to Palestine, Israel, and I bought me some. And in fact, what I'm told, and Ambassador, you can confirm this, and what I'm told is anybody can wear the scarf, and it is, and in fact, a scarf that, in a simple way, is a sign of resistance. It's a sign of solidarity with people who are struggling in all kinds of ways. And as a Black man here in America, I know something about that. I know something about struggle. I know something about that. I know something about that. So that's the setup to you coming to us. Now I'm gonna play a little bit, uninformed. What is a an ambassador, somebody deployed by a government to another government. What did you do?
So, as Palestine is an exception to all the rules in the world, it's different when you're an ambassador to Palestine, especially to places that don't recognize you, like the US and Canada, and some places also in Europe. We have recognition. We're recognized as a state in 146 countries over the world, all over the world. But unfortunately, in the US, we don't even have a delegation. It was closed during President Trump's tenure. And our ambassador was kicked out from Washington, D.C. The delegation, the mission was closed. So, so basically, there is no representation for the Palestinian people in the U.S., and that's a sad reality to have, because you can't, like, it made me think when I saw the sign behind you about no justice, no peace. I had an interview a couple of days ago, and there was a huge issue about me saying that Palestinians are not per se looking for peace right now. They're looking for justice. And everybody was like, they don't want peace, but it's actually that they want justice that bothers me, about people not wanting that for the Palestinians. So why is it so awful for the Palestinians to ask for justice? We have been, for 30 years, going in a path of peace, and we've been committed to it until now. And all we are asking for justice is for all the international laws to apply to our people when people are being slaughtered, and in a way where genocide and ethnic cleansing rules the sphere, and nobody is really doing anything about it. So an ambassador brings all of that information to the places where they serve, and they try to push the governments. That's in the case of Palestine, and in the case of other places where you have problems that you want the country that is receiving you to understand or help with. But it also means when things are when you don't have a struggle against occupation and apartheid, you can do work on tourism, work on trade, work on all of these things that you can bring in to the table about your country. So they're like a liaison between the country and the receiving country you're in.
Got it. And here in the United States, there was obviously this is a different sort of situation as it relates to Palestine and the Palestinian people, but there was an kind of unofficial relations that was established in the 1960s, early 1964, I believe, where an office was allowed to open. And in relationship and connection with the UN, there was some diplomatic relationship established, and then ultimately an office and a diplomatic. Listen, I'm getting ready to get fancy. A diplomatic corps was
yeah, it wasn't diplomatic per se, right. Commissioned, because if it's diplomatic, the problems disappear because they recognize you as a state that has sovereignty and has land that belongs to it, which Israel is now taking every day. So that was part of the problem, and a bigger problem is to just close that office so you don't have any relationship between Palestine and the U.S. But even during the times that were beautiful, where everything was pink and dandy, we had to renew the approval from Congress every 6 months. The president had to sign off on extending the office agreement to stay open. So yeah, relationships did not go the way we wanted them to go, especially with the US as a leader in the world. And we expect that it could affect peace in a way, even if it's for the security and the betterment of lives for the Israelis, because we've seen what wars and aggressions can do, and it's time to see what justice can do.
Yeah. So let's stay here for a moment. I have been certainly thinking a lot about it upon my initial forays to that part of the world. Obviously, as a leader in faith tradition um, that started with the Palestinian Jew, born in Bethlehem. That's West
Yeah.
Bank. All right. So I just wanted to make, and then Nazareth. You know.
Yeah.
Um, so we there's a whole lot here, and one of the things that I had to recognize upon my trip there, that this is not the first time, and it's not this is not recent history that there has been, let me say, different political interest in that part of the world. And in fact, I think I remember, just as a Christian, that part of the world, Palestine, was occupied by the um, the Roman Empire during the time of Jesus, right? So this little strip of land for us here in the United States, about the size of New Jersey, in dimensions, if you know want to put that on for a moment. But it's certainly ancient historical space and place. And when you walk the land, and when you are there, I love some of what you say in your on your website, that it's a place of love and beauty and culture. It's a place of there's some great people and very interesting people in that part of the world, and I certainly have found that to be true. Very giving and very generous. This space has with it a kind of, let me speak it in my terms, a kind of spiritual power, right? There's a resonance there, that I get, that we call it, some of us would refer to it as the Holy Land, right?
Exactly. There's a reason it's called the Holy
There's something very, very palpable. Could you talk a little bit about that, and what you mean when you say it's a place of love and peace and compassion? Yeah.
Yeah. It's that space that united everyone together, or all religions, or people from all sorts of life at that point before the 48. We had Palestinian Muslims, Jews, and Christians living in that land, and we had a lot of people coming from all over, all the countries, and interested in everything that Palestine had to give. And you see, now, even after all of this time, you see the culture, the Palestinian songs, the Palestinian dresses, the Palestinian food, all of those things that are attached to the land. So our clothes, like the cross stitch that we wear, are attached to the birds, the trees, the geographical painting of the land, and you wear it, and you know that that's yours, and it differs. Then people, when you travel from one place to the other, they'll know that you're from this city or that city. They're not going to be asking you what your religion is, but they'll know that you're coming from another place. And then they would tell you, oh, you're coming from afar, let's give you food, let's have you sleep over, or all of that. So it has been known for all of that generosity and love. So that's why it's called the Holy Land, and it's also called Land of Peace. It hasn't seen peace in a long, long time, but I believe that it was called that for a reason, and that would happen in the future. So yeah, I hope, and then you can visit, and and you can see that again with your own eyes.
Absolutely. So let's do just a little bit of history for folk. And when you reference 48, you were speaking of 1948.
Yes, it's the Nakba, the catastrophe that we call it, the translation for the Palestinians. When we were ethnically cleansed from historic Palestine, there were around 1 million people that were kicked out from their homes, my grandparents included. My dad's family was ethnically cleansed from Jaffa, and my mom's family from Safad. My grandfather on my mom's side went to Lebanon, to a refugee camp where he's still living after 75 years. My grandfather on my dad's side was pushed to Gaza, and that needs to be said, because those people who live in Gaza and now being displaced, forcibly displaced and ethnically cleansed, and be undergoing genocide, were actually survivors, and they were refugees from 48, from Nakba, who were pushed into Gaza, and now they're stuck there. They have been, before this aggression, stuck in the largest, what is called the largest open air prison in the world. So yeah, it's just a catastrophe that keeps on continuing. We are all, as Palestinians, I call it, we are all a product of Nakba, no matter where you were born. I was born in Lebanon during the war, because my parents were kicked out from Palestine, my grandparents. So anybody living in refuge as a Palestinian, they are a product of this catastrophe that happened to us in 48.
Understand it, and of course don't understand it at all, right?
Yeah.
What I do understand about this, as an African whose birthplace here is here in the United States, we have a word we call for what we call the great tragedy, right? And that word comes from a Kiswahili word that means great tragedy, the Middle Passage, the Maafa or Maafa. And so I understand what that means. And you know, as an African American, we are continually understanding, as a Black person in America, an African in America, we're continuing to understand what that has meant to have to be displaced. And that's in many ways when you tell the history, and when you say this, okay, this is not, we're not talking politics here. We're talking facts and receipts.
Yeah.
That in 1948, a group of people, 700, 800, a million people, went from a citizen of a country, Palestine, with a passport, with identity, with a land, went from there overnight to a people without a citizenship, without land, and in fact, without a national identity of sorts.
But you know what we had?
You did have
the keys to the homes. This one has will be back on it that we carry. I have the key, the actual key of the home from where the grandparents of my husband were displaced from. It's in the West Bank, but it's in Jerusalem, part of our Palestinian state, but it's called Lifta, like a city, and they were displaced from there. So yeah, we're attached to our keys, we're attached to our memories, and even when the peace process took place, it was and that's the biggest problem and trauma for the Palestinian people, especially now. We are undergoing a national trauma where every Palestinian cannot believe what is transpiring and how the world is responding to it. But when the peace process happened, we believed, the international community, that they will take on their responsibility to ensure, after we appeased and agreed to 22% of our historic homeland, to prevent bloodshed on every side and to ensure a future for our kids that we did not see. What I saw, what my mother saw, what my grandfather saw, we did not want that for our kids. So of course I can't compare the things they have seen, and generational, but we still have that trauma that we do not want our kids to inherit. We appeased, we tried, but the international community just did not take on its responsibilities. That's the easiest way to just say it. It let us down.
Trying to do too many things, all behind the scenes. Listen. The United Nations General Secretary,
General Assembly.
In the General Assembly. Well, there are two things. As I understand it, the General
Security Council and the General Assembly.
Yes. So there are a couple of things here. So first, let me say that Secretary General Antonio Guterres said this. Yes. Hostilities in Gaza and Israel have created appalling human suffering, physical destruction, and collective trauma across Israel and the occupied Palestinian territory. The international community has a responsibility to use all its influence to prevent further escalation in this crisis. Mm-hmm. That is what he said.
Yeah, and he's attacked for saying anything regarding a humane treatment of even not rights or the responsibilities of people, just looking at us as human beings that is being attacked.
Yeah. And so this is an interesting time. As we were talking before we went on tonight, that the General Assembly right now in Washington, in New York City, is in conversation and deliberations about the supporting a ceasefire resolution.
It's the Security Council.
The Security Council specifically.
Yeah.
What the UN has said, they've said three things. They said, one, we need to allow humanitarian access. That we need to avoid collective punishment, and they've defined that as a particular thing. And thirdly, the release of the hostages, and that's been what they have urged from parties, right? That's what they have said. What would you say in addition to how might you characterize what's happening there and what's happening on the ground, and what are your words as you represent the Palestinian interest in Canada?
So of course we want these atrocities to stop, the genocide, the ethnic cleansing. We need just asking for access of water, food, and medical supplies seems so inhumane, and for us to be asking for that to happen shows where we're at on the international sphere of doing things. This is not what liberal democracies, values and principles have been preached, and Palestine cannot be the exception to all of that. So this is something that should not be included. This is something that should be implemented ASAP. It's 73 days late, 78 days late, and we just meeting with those people who just came out from Gaza and seeing them talk about everything that they've been through, and they all say one sentence in particular that they keep repeating: whatever you think you know about what's happening in Gaza, you don't. So the atrocity, the amount of devastation. Listen, John, I spoke in Canada and I told them I saw our corpse of my people being eaten by stray dogs on the streets, diplomacy jumped out of the window. We can't allow for something like this to continue, and we can't allow for that to happen ever again. So the first part, we can't allow it to continue. We need the international community to commit to something. And we had recently the General Assembly resolution on humanitarian ceasefire, and 153 countries voted for that. But because it's said to be not binding, which I very much reject, because why have a General Assembly if its resolutions are not implemented? So why bother doing this whole thing? So in Security Council, they couldn't reach consensus on a resolution, and the US, of course, last time it vetoed. You had 13 with, and one, that's the UK, abstain, and the US vetoed that resolution, and that was heartbreaking. So right now we want the international community to take on its responsibility and stop playing around the words. If you, and that's the main problem, they want to include one side and the others want to include, if they want to include that, then the other side needs to be included, and that's only fair. You have 20,000 people murdered, slaughtered, and not to mention those under the rubble. If you are going to mention one side, you need to mention by name. You need to call things by their true names. We're not collateral damage. Our lives are not less important to have them treated as such. So just go ahead and start talking about the people and not the interests of the mighty, and implementing the justice of the mighty and dictated peace, because it's never going to bring justice nor peace. The other side is to end the cycle where we are talking about peace for some time. You need to go to the root problems. The international community has tried to ignore the root problem of occupation and apartheid for so long. And it was thought that we would be the perfect victim. Palestinians will never be the perfect victim for anyone. We will never stop calling for our liberation and sovereignty. We've appeased, as I told you, enough. And now we expect the world to stand for us to be able to get what's just, to be able to have our own future, our own land. So that is not against anyone. And if our occupier and oppressor would have been Christian or Muslim, we were not going to be acting any differently or requesting any different request. So it's not a religious struggle. It's a struggle for liberation and recognizing Palestine and moving. We don't want to negotiate for the sake of negotiations. We've done that for 30 years. We have all the what we need to know about how to implement things on board. We have the Netanyahu said in front of the whole world that he was the one who stood over, did everything to make the two-state solution not actually see the light, and Oslo to just die as it has done. His government is calling for the wiping of the Palestinian people. So it's now that the time for the international community to do both. And the devastation and the pain that the Palestinian people are faced with, and make sure that we can move forward to another place where this can never happen again.
I understand. I think you're clear, and I think for many, I say this often, and I say it quite clearly as it relates to what I witnessed and saw in Palestine, Israel. What I saw, I can't unsee, right? What I experienced on the ground there, day for day. I've told you this. When I walk in East Jerusalem, I see a bunch of fellas hanging out what looks like to me a liquor store. It's not a liquor store, but it looks like to me in America it would be a liquor store. And I see some blood standing there, and I give them the Negro nod, and they give me the Negro nod back. I feel at home. I'm just telling you, I feel at home. It's like regular. Now, when I'm in West Jerusalem, that's very, very a different kind of vibe, right? It's a little more suburban, and I know the businesses are open. They see me as a Black person, and then when I start talking, oh, he's an American. And so they want my dollar. But what I see out the corner of my eye are young people who have Uzis, who may or may not have them pointed at me. So there's a way in which, yeah, my dollar is being received. I'm being pacified. I'm being serviced. At the restaurant, or if I'm partaking of any service. But I don't feel a lot of safety, and that's what I have experienced over and over again in this place, this quote holy place. I also know that there have been multiple traditions, both political and religious, that have been in and out of that region, and they have co-mingled for much of human history that we know of, that's recorded. They've done that. They've been in those spaces. Different peoples have been in that space and have lived in peaceful ways. It's only when the politics get going, as I have understood. Now, I don't know all of human history, and I certainly don't know all.
I want to just tell you something here. It's like the Zionist project is portraying this, and that's the Israeli government at this point is portraying that Israelis' well-being cannot build without the Palestinian demise. So when you build your well-being on the demise of others, and that's normalized, it creates a very unsafe pattern of living, even for those who want their well-being. So if that's the case for a normal person, then there's something wrong with the request of well-being on top of someone else's demise. So we need to actually make it seem for everyone that everybody's well-being is important as the other. Everybody's life is as important. Nobody's life is more important to each other, and in regards to the international community and those liberal democracies that should treat Palestinian and Israelis. And they've said that after when the first statement came out after October 7th, and I've said that in my meetings in Canada, that when we heard the statements by the politicians, by the leaders of the parties, by the Prime Minister, by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, we knew that there has been a green light given to the Israelis, and they would take that as implementing genocide and ethnic cleansing. Words matter, and that is what the international community and leaders need to know. Because it's not about people, it's about the leaders who are portraying this struggle as something it's not. So that is why we need to get to everyone, to portray, to just show why the world is not looking at the pictures of Gaza. Because if anybody, if the media the mainstream media were to show exactly what's happening there, you would know everything and you would stand for stopping these massacres. So it's not portrayed. Even in Canada, where I'm at, I see how how TV works and what you see on it. I come up on it for a few minutes, and then people send me messages. Oh, we didn't know. Oh, thank you for telling us. But that is exactly where we want to go, to call out liberal democracies when there is this hypocrisy or double standard, and to have people be able to understand what really is happening on the ground. Palestinians are not hateful. Palestinians are not looking to kill anyone. Palestinians have been struggling for 75 years. It did not start 2 months ago, or a little more than 2 months now. But that alone, and looking for a solution for the people who are under occupation and oppression, should be something that everybody applauds. And they have been applauding that in Ukraine. So when you go and see the tools and what the international community can do when it wants to end someone's suffering, in comparison to what is being done, we see in West Bank settlers who are called by everybody extremists, right-wing extremists, right? But then we have a minister of security in the government of Israel that represents the Israelis. Go ahead and give them weapons. They live on stolen land and they go and terrorize the Palestinian indigenous population, but they get weapons. Imagine if the Palestinians gave weapons not to terrorize the people who are sealing the land, but just to protect themselves, we would be called terrorists. So, yeah, that's the reality on the ground that needs to be changed.
Thank you. And listen, I think as a person of faith, right, as a person of faith, when it comes to uh, issues related to human rights and human value, we all are valuable. And I'll tell you a quick story. I am from St. Louis originally, and so people know that city, that town. And now people know Ferguson. Well, Ferguson is a nearby suburb of St. Louis. And in fact, my family is from the town just west of Ferguson. And it's the first African American town incorporated in the state of Missouri here in the United States. And so when Ferguson, happened, the uprising, and it is the place where Black Lives Matter got their arms and got their legs and became a movement. It was more than just a hashtag. It became a thing. Early in the rebellion and the resistance movement down in Ferguson, I got to watch in real time when tear gas and rubber bullets were shot by authorized authority. I'm talking about the popo, the police. When tear gas and rubber bullets were being shot at citizens of the United States by other citizens of the United States, tear gas in real time. Folk and resistance and freedom fighters in Gaza was texting freedom fighters in Ferguson, and they would say, "Go get the empty canisters and read the numbers off to us and text it back to us." I mean, this was happening in real time. They went and got the numbers. They was texting back. They said, "Okay, if somebody gets hit with that particular kind of tear gas, the 835 ZT, blah 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 blah, you got to use this part of milk of magnesia. Don't get milk of magnesia, and this part water." Now read the other one. Do you have an 8573 BB7? Okay, you need this part.
You need onions for some as well, they would tell you.
So in real time, we got to watch the resistance freedom fighters talking to other resistance freedom fighters in real time. I got to watch this partnership between Gaza and Ferguson really take on meaningful conversation and communication. What these mediums of my grandmother say, the internets, and the old people here in African American communities would say, the internets will do. It is. So we got just a few more minutes to be with you. I don't want to. I'm appreciative of your family and this time you've given to us. There are clear things that regular folk can do. What would you say? What would you recommend? How would you characterize what folk who will watch this? They're watching. There's some that are watching right now, and then there's some who will tune in later. What would you say to them as a way to be helpful in this moment?
So first of all, I want to thank everyone that have gone on so many demonstrations around the world. You know, the Palestinian cause is the only cause that brings out so many millions of people all over the world for a particular reason, for freedom for the Palestinians and for human rights for the Palestinians. So that alone has had a great effect. And if nothing else, you are giving the Palestinians who are under occupation and apartheid some breath of fresh air, because they know they're not alone. They know they're loved. They know that all of these chants for free Palestine comes from your hearts, and that there is hope. Injustice will never be the end goal. It will never persevere. It's the opposite. Freedom and justice persevere in the end. So that part is something that Palestinians cherish and hope it stays, and that you know how much it means to us. Another thing that is important is knowledge. We appreciate the support, but we also want educated people on the issue, because there is so much going on in propaganda and misinformation, and a lot of times people would believe things because they don't know what's behind it. So in conversations, in arguments you will know more. It's for you to decide which side you're on, but we know that when you have knowledge, when you seek that knowledge, you will not stand by anything but the just cause of Palestine. So that is another thing that we hope Americans at home would do. The last thing I would say is talk to your congressmen, congresswomen, and show them that, because here I tell my community always that unless the MPs and MLAs would know that their stand on social justice in general and on Palestine in particular would be a decision maker for you to go and vote for them when the time comes. These supports, the words will not change into policy or action. And we are way past the talk. It's the time for the walk. And to do so, we need action. We need policy. We need to push everyone to act what they say. The policies, I'm not negotiating Canada's policies, and I don't see a change in policy. I just see Canada now implementing its own policy, and that's a good thing. And I'm thankful that I'm witnessing that. But we need more. We need the actual change to be inflicted on the Palestinian lives, to see a stop to these massacres, to this inhumane normalization of the dehumanization of Palestinians. So don't accept that. Don't accept that we are collateral damage. Don't accept that we have to die so the Israelis can live. No, that's not the reality, and it can't be ever. Nobody, as I told you, nobody's well-being can be built on anybody else's demise. It's only the policies that don't want to be destroyed, like occupation and apartheid, that hide behind those slogans and those policies to make it seem like the protection of people is built on killing all of those people in return. So those are the things I think that come to my mind. And just thank you for listening, and thank you for trying, and thank you for wanting to do anything about this. And I'm available, my info, if anyone wants, if you want me again, if there's any information needed, if anybody asks you that they need information, you can give them my contact, and I'm more than happy. We are here at the delegation, more than happy to help anyone interested to know more about Palestine.
Absolutely. I'll tell you a couple of things. We were one of our trips to Palestine and Israel. We were taken and allowed entry into Palestinian refugee camp, the real big one in Jordan. There's a real big one right on the border of Jordan and the state of Israel. What I saw there, what should have been a temporary community, has been a community for almost 60 years. And then we were taken to another a refugee camp. And this one was in Bethlehem. It's in the West Bank, but it kind of borders the West Bank, and the security fence, it's a wall. It's a wall, right? The language is important. So one of the things I came back here talking about was not a security fence. It's a big old concrete wall with with barbed wire at the top. It's a wall. It's a wall. And I didn't know what a refugee camp was. I mean, you see it on, here in the United States, you see pictures, and, you see people raising money, and you get flashes of it. That's one thing. To walk, for just a few minutes with folk who have been displaced uh, for generations. I can tell you what it felt like. It felt like some of the communities here in the United States that I've known, that are occupied by uh, poor people and Appalachian folk, and of course Black people and brown people here in the United States. It was eerily similar. That what has been described in Gaza as an open air prison. I know a little bit what that feels like, a little bit. Neighborhoods where you can't go nowhere because you're going to be harassed and demeaned and in fact dehumanized, not looked at as a human being, but looked at as a other than a human being. In fact, in this country, we still have on the books that Black people are 3/5 human. How could that be? But anyway, Anyway. So there is a thing that I think we are all called to in today, and we're called to experience one another as human, to experience one another as people, person to person, human to human. Humanity meets humanity, right? And I think, we're talking about, in this case, Palestine and Israel. But there's warrings and strivings going on all across the globe, in fact. And so I think the call for those of us who understand at a not on the superficial level, but who understand at a little bit of a deeper level, that we've got to stand for one another and stand with one another as we figure out, and we try, and we got to do it. We got to figure out how do we be human to human with one another. And I think in the spirit of love, peace, and compassion, with passion, that we come at understanding what it means. We're not talking about way back in the day. We're talking about right now. It's an active, and I know I'm on a little bit of my soapbox. I'm preaching a little bit, and of course you're part of the choir, Ambassador. But it is. I believe the reason I wanted you on tonight is to at least have a conversation in real time. We began this conversation, and we met because a very senseless incident occurred with three young men who were just minding their own business, walking on the street in any town. It happened to be Burlington, Vermont. And because of them talking and this is what we surmise, we don't even know yet what the shooter had on their mind. But because they were walking, speaking in Arabic, and two of the three young men had on a kufiya, they were identified and what one of the boys said, when Tassin said this, he said, I wasn't a person, I was a kufiya. When he said it to me, lying in his bed with the bullet fragments still in his body, in his chest, it struck something really, really profound in me. That somehow he was othered in a moment. And we alhamdulillah, praise God, he did not lose his life. But many are losing their lives. And we gotta figure this out.
Yeah, six children, actually, at least 6 children in Gaza have been murdered in the time that we spent talking to each other today. And these boys who have undergone this senseless tragedy, they have been shot simply, and this kifiyya, it just tells you who's Palestinian and who's not. So that was a Palestinian supporter or a Palestinian, so they were shot because they're Palestinian. And we all are feeling, as Palestinians, feel like subhumans at this point, because we can't comprehend that everything that's happening to us, with the world watching and still conversing about it in even in the UN or Security Council, and it continues. Our loved ones, including mine, stayed under the rubble for so long. We weren't able to actually bury them. Or some people couldn't even say goodbye. And as I told you, some people don't know where the corpses are and what is happening to them. The stories that you are hearing from people are outrageous. So for a Palestinian to see all of this, and um, it's going to take a long time for us to look at the other and think that they see us as equal. So I think that is, if you know a Palestinian, any Palestinian, even if they're not going, they haven't been in Palestine at this time, know that they are all traumatized by what's happening in Gaza, because it's against an existential threat against anybody Palestinian.
Ambassador, um, thank you very much for joining me. And as I say all the time, chopping it up with me for a little bit.
You made me cry twice, so you owe me one or two.
Well, and right back at you. If there's a word that we can share, if there's a place we can stand with you, we do. We stand with people who are day for day, just trying to live. Good God. The Palestinian has our support. I'll close with this. In 1959, one of my heroes, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, with his beloved Mrs. Coretta Scott King, during a march in that year, made a trip through Lebanon and through Damascus.
I was born in Lebanon in the refugee camp, by the way.
Came to Palestine, Israel, came to Jerusalem, visited some holy sites, and was made aware of and got to see. He then came back to his pulpit. He was still in the now famous Dexter Avenue Church, Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. And he preached a sermon on Easter Sunday. So, for Christians, this in Palestine, they turn up a great deal, in Bethlehem around
We all do.
around Easter, and he shared from his heart what he believed. He then, a number of years later, it was the summer of 1967, was scheduled to lead a delegation of African American and other Christian and other faith leaders to, in fact, come and revisit. It was during that time that the 7-Day War began, and upon hearing when that particular war broke out, he said, "Oh my gosh, I don't know if we," he feared the worst. And of course, we know in hindsight now there was a term there that you and the people of Palestine and the people of Israel have never really come back from. That the incursions, the settlements began to increase, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It is a what I have committed to is to begin to have more and more specific conversations as it relates to what I know is true because I've seen it with my eyes. And you listen, it's about human beings. It's about people who are trying to live And I believe there can be a space where we can live together in peace. And I won't let that go, despite what I see, and sometimes despite what I feel.
But that's the land to do it.
That's right. There
It's
is
a
enough.
perfect land to do it in.
You know, there is enough, and it is only in the mindset of scarcity, in the mindset, you know, that's dispossessed of our humanity, that
Yep,
we
yep.
somehow get off track. And I appreciate you so very much for
Thank you so
joining me
much.
for this conversation, for
A
talking
pleasure.
to me from your space and place, for telling us what an ambassador does. I bless you. May God be with you.
Give,
Assalamu
give
alaikum. You
my
say,
best to the boys as well. If
will
I
do.
get a chance to talk to them, I'll
Will
come
do.
back to visit for sure.
We will tell them they'll be excited. They were excited to greet you and meet you in Vermont. And thank you again.
Thank
And
you
thank
so
you for
much.
joining us. And we'll be in touch real soon as things change, as things we're going to get this piece. We're going to get it.
No
And
justice, no peace.
no justice, however, we got to have some justice in
Yes,
order for peace to reign. And
yes.
so I'm a believer of that. Thank you again,
Thank
Ambassador.
you so much.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
And blessings to you and your family and your work.
Thank you.
All
Have a
right. Peace, everybody. We'll see you next time. God bless.